little minions, it's me, Bo Shevasu. Today, I am coming to you with something that I use to actually spar with myself. Now, hear me out. I have a religion degree as well as a theater degree, and I am basically a full-time missionary. I go all over the world, been to 37 different countries around the world, and I've spoken with people of multiple faiths. Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, Hinduism, Muslim friends, so many. Now, in order to communicate to them, I need to know how to speak their vernacular. And if I'm in my own bubble, where I only speak with fellow Christians or debate with fellow Christians and kind of self-affirm my own beliefs, which I absolutely believe are 100% the truth. I love Jesus tremendously. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And I read my Bible every single morning. Now here's the deal. This is what Soul Talk does for me, because these aren't necessarily Christian per se cards. And so first of all, you have this little guy right here. This I folded down to actually keep track of cards that have been unasked. I've just put them right in there. Typically you'll have it probably halfway through or maybe partway through like this. And then that indicates that I have not asked myself or someone else this card right here. Now, typically the purple, the blue cards like this, these are indicative of spiritual topics. And then if it's yellow, then I'll show you an example of a yellow card that's more like a quote from a famous spiritual leader. So this one is a Zen quote right here. There was also another quote from Thomas Aquinas that I remembered. And this really doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with these quotes. You can use this as a starting point. So regardless of what your faith is, if you're a Christian like I am, I might say, okay, what do you call the world? And so that's this question, 3 Zen koans for contemplation. So what do I call the world? Or this is an interesting one, describe the sound of the universe. Now, I don't know someone of a Buddhist faith what they would say, but I can describe this according to my own faith, which biblically speaking, the sound of the universe I would draw straight from the Bible, which is how when God says there are groans in creation, it is groaning, it is yearning for Christ to return. And so that's how I would say the sound of the universe is, the sound of creation or the sound of nature is this groan because it's yearning for something more. And that is, I believe, for Christ to return someday. Here's another one, just randomly, I just pulled out. I don't know what this is. It says, what is your favorite method of attaining or experiencing stillness? Now I asked my wife this, and she said she goes to yoga. Now specifically, she goes to yoga that is not into the Hindu mysticism, but it truly is a sport for her. And when I go with her, I'm praying to God, like Jehovah God, Jesus, the whole time when I am in there. And so yes, I know you're moving, so it's not quite still as the card says, but it's certainly less active than your day-to-day running from here to there, which is the antithesis of stillness. So for Liz, my wife, yoga is stillness. For me, believe it or not, I would say stillness is going out into nature and just being alone with God, sometimes hiking. And yes, again, I know that's not still, I'm actively moving, but mind-wise, I am very, very still. Or actually taking a shower, I would say I'm very still. That's when I get the most ideas and aha moments, is when I'm just bored in the shower. I actually have a waterproof notepad in my shower because everything is so still and I can be contemplative in the shower. There's nothing there in there to distract me, except of course like washing myself. I do get around to washing myself, I promise you. Let's do one more card just to kind of show you. This is completely random. This isn't posed or anything like that. This one says, do you value a minimalist lifestyle? Is minimalism important to your spiritual beliefs? And I would say absolutely yes. Now for the longest time, I loved to collect things because I attributed memories to collections. Like let's say, for example, if I went to a foreign country, I would get a patch. And I would think to myself, if I have this patch, all the memories of that trip would be preserved within this patch. Or rather, when I look at it, it would trigger those memories. And I really had to give that up as I accumulated so much stuff from my travels. And I realized that it was bogging my house down. There were just these trinkets everywhere, and it was overwhelming. So really what I had to do was give my memories to God and say, yes, I appreciate these moments, but if I can't recollect them, that doesn't mean that they're any less valuable or they didn't exist if I cannot recollect them. I just have to bless and release them. And so because of that, I've adopted a more minimalist lifestyle. And so a lot of our house is, I would say, rather minimalist. I mean, we could certainly do better. Like, for example, I buy stuff off of Amazon and I'm like, well, is this really minimalism? In this particular case, I would say I really strive for that. I'm not perfect when it comes to minimalism, but I'm certainly trying. So there you go. These are really quite thought-provoking, aren't they? So I would recommend these, absolutely, regardless of what your faith is, especially if you're a fellow Christian and you are fairly exclusive with your faith. You believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. If you come across some quotes from Gandhi or Confucius or Buddha or Jesus himself in here, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all on the same level. I believe that Jesus is far above any of those characters. He's the only one who claimed he was God and actually proved it by conquering death itself. But that does not discount that the majority of people in your life, you're going to run across them who actually believe what Buddha says and what Confucius says or what Muhammad says. And so if you can familiarize yourself with those philosophies, it makes you a much better minister and a much better missionary to these people.